President Biden pivoting yet again as he tries to mend his wounded political agenda. Biden, who is 18 months into his presidency today, deciding now is the time to call climate change an emergency. The move, an apparent attempt to appease his progressive base, upset that Biden is not fighting harder for the policies they want. The president out in Massachusetts today making the push for green energy.
Climate change is literally an existential threat to our nation and to the world. This is an emergency, and I will look at it that way. I said last week, and I'll say it again loud and clear. As president, I'll use my executive powers to combat the climate crisis. Not a single Republican in Congress stepped up to support my climate plan. Not one. So let me be clear. Climate change is an emergency. We're going to make the air safer. I really mean it. We have an opportunity here.
That comes as Democrats lay into moderate Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, with some claiming he's doomed humanity. Yes, doomed humanity. Manchin pumping the brakes on more than $500 billion in new climate spending. The senator says his critics need to chill out.
So people that are criticizing me, my own colleagues, I understand that. I understand their aspirations. I understand where they're coming from. The criticisms I'm getting from the people who are saying, well, Joe Manchin strings it. I'm not stringing you along. Don't you believe inflation is the #1 thing in America right now that's hurting every human being? I'm sorry. If they don't care about that, I do. I'm more concerned about that than anything.
Voters seem to be siding with Joe Manchin instead of the president. A new poll shows just 1% of voters rank climate as the most important problem facing the country. Jesse, that might actually be the 1% downtown.
It's true. Air safer?
Yeah.
I think we need the street safer, not the air, Joe. And that's what happens. You do a shot in front of a landfill when you have to scramble when Manchin tanks your domestic agenda. You don't give the advance team enough time to set up a good shot. Biden's not a green guy, never was a green guy. He was following Barack's footsteps. Now he's following Bernie's footsteps. He probably couldn't explain to you the science of global warming if you asked him straight up. He doesn't know anything about it. He is going to Massachusetts because Massachusetts had this coal plant, and they fired 200 workers from the coal plant to make windmills now. But guess who owns the windmill company? The Italians. So he's picking winners and losers. None of these winners and losers are American companies. He's doing corporate welfare for the Italian companies. I don't understand why he's doing that, because it's not even a green state. I looked into the energy sources for Massachusetts. It's like 2/3 natural gas, a little bit coal, and a lot nuclear. Less than 1% of energy in Massachusetts comes from renewables. So you can put windmills up as much as you want. They're not going to be able to power that state. He has a new poll out. Quinnipiac, he's at 31%. He is clinging for dear life here. That's why he's going up there, because his base has 1 foot out the door. Yeah. You got to think to yourself, Dina, if Massachusetts is such a liberal state, and I said yesterday that Delaware is such a liberal state, then how come none of these states are green? How come none of these states use solar or wind? None of them do. What's stopping the Democratic leadership from those states from doing it? Here's what's stopping it. It doesn't work. That's why they don't do it.
The president today, Greg, said it's an emergency, but he did not officially declare an emergency. He didn't put any pen to paper. But to talk to the base, he said it is an emergency.
He can't say it's an emergency when he still owns a Corvette, right? If he really believed that this was an existential threat, he'd go, America, I'm selling the Corvette. And then I go, wow, he really believes it. And all the Secret Service should trade their SUVs in for, I don't know, stretch Priuses. You know, just to put their money where your mouth is. We're in a full-blown heat wave hysteria where we demonize mankind without finding actually any practical solutions. It's not windmills. That's intermittent. You're not going to be able to power factories with that. Solar power, it's not looking too good, right? And he keeps using the phrase, dishonestly, extreme weather, right? It's not hard to look up the science, right? 1920, 500,000 died in floods, in droughts, heat waves, storms. 2020, 14,000. That's a decline of 96%. And as I've said before, and remember we used to do this all the time? Oh, my God, we'd have to be talking about this, and I'd have to go like, cold deaths far outnumber heat deaths. But you don't hear about that, right? So how do the rich countries get rich, right? Fossil fuels. Steel and fertilizer depends on coal and gas. Now we're telling these poor countries, sorry, the door is closed. You're not going to get it. You have to do solar and wind. That's going to lead people to poverty and an early death. Factories cannot be run again by intermittent wind. It doesn't work. So Biden is in effect telling poor countries, you're screwed, as he goes to Saudi Arabia and begs for them to pump more oil. That's hypocrisy. They haven't learned, and this is a bummer, because I do think it's getting warmer. It's taken me a while to figure this out, or I was waiting for the science. But think about the opportunity cost of all the zealotry. You know, panic didn't work, and it alienated people like me. It might have been a real issue, except they demonized nuclear power, which is going to actually probably be the main solution. Modern, thoughtful environmentalists are talking about it as a clean, safe energy. You got to get on board. The Democrats, I think even AOC is for it, though I don't know. I might have dreamt that. But right on cue, the hard woke left is saying that nuclear power is racist, ageist, sexist. So the hyperbole going back to the 70s has alienated a lot of people. Nobody trusts Chicken Littles. So they got to dig their way out of this stuff because they've made too many dire predictions that came out false. And it actually hurt a cause that could use some real serious science.
You were dreaming about AOC?
No, I was dreaming.
Oh, okay.
Judge, do you remember last fall President Biden went to Glasgow and, basically half the cabinet went to Glasgow, and they had that big climate meeting, and everybody was going to make pledges for what they're going to do. Apparently, that's all fell apart.
I was just going to say,
it's
what
all falling
happened?
apart.
I don't remember anything happening. But, you know, every time Biden says that something is an emergency and he's going to address it, he's going to unlock federal resources, and he's going to use all of his administrative powers, I mean, the man is so out there at this point, he doesn't realize what the emergencies are. The emergencies are inflation and crime. Those are the emergencies. But you see, these people don't believe they work for us. What they believe in is getting elected and making sure that the power is distributed among people that they agree with and people who benefit. So, for example, now, Solyndra. Do you remember Solyndra?
Oh, we even had a graphic.
Okay.
I named my child after Solyndra.
$500 million, and there was taxpayers' money involved in that. The taxpayers got put in the back of the line so that the Obama supporters and the Obama, I think, bundlers got paid first. And that was corrupt from the beginning. And we all knew that Solyndra was going to go bankrupt, but Obama insisted, yeah, we got to invest in those solar panels. So what we're going to do now is we're going to invest in solar panels, and guess where? China. And we're going to get all of these car batteries for our electric vehicles. Guess where? China. This is about Biden taking care of Hunter or whatever it is he wants to take care of with China, who is, I believe, our arch enemy, as far as I'm concerned. They want to control the world. But this existential threat stuff, you know, give me some evidence. Give me some criteria. Give me something that tells me I'm going to die, what is it, in 6 more years? We're all going to die from this. And the end game, and I think the hero in all of this, is Joe Manchin. I love the guy. He's the only guy with common sense. And the Democrats want to make him into the evil guy. He's the only guy who's preventing them from totally destroying the economy.
Do you love Joe Manchin, Jessica?
I like him fine. We're not going to get another Democrat in West Virginia. Be thankful for what you have. It's impossible. He ran ahead of Donald Trump in the state, for God's sake.
And Donald Trump won by like 45 points.
And he won by like 70 points.
Yeah.
Also, what Joe Manchin is talking about is not that he doesn't believe that climate change is real and that it's man-made. It's that we can't spend more because the extra spending is hurting us in terms of inflation.
Right.
And that's really what's upsetting people on a day-to-day basis. Right. That doesn't mean he doesn't believe in the emergency part of this, which I absolutely believe in as well. And Judge, when you say there's no emergency, there is plenty of it.
I said,
where's the evidence?
I said,
Here is the
what
evidence.
is the criteria?
Don't bring up weather. Bring up climate.
What?
Don't point to the weather. Because that's what everybody does.
Yeah,
and that means I can do it too and say, well, it's cold now.
No, but excuse me. There are wildfires ripping through London. There was a 25-foot wave that took out a 2-story condo in Hawaii. You're making a face at me. I don't understand what you're grinning about.
Because the data is against us. I just told you extreme weather is actually less than it is.
It's not. If you go and look at the Environmental Defense Fund, they have a whole 9-step plan.
I'm using the IPC, whatever.
CC.
CC, thank you. CCU.
There is no conceivable way that we can say that our flying around, our emissions, the amount of CO2 that we are pumping into whatever system you want above is not having an effect on our life below.
You mean John Kerry?
Sure. Yeah, Democrats go on
No,
private
but
jets,
Jessica,
too.
though, it is interesting, though, that the administration can't figure out a way to talk about this in a way that says, okay, we are not going to end gasoline-powered cars in the next 3 years, so we have to have a slow roll out of this. Here's the slow roll. They can't do that. They're just like, all he does is get up there and say,
why no one
it's an
believes it.
emergency.
Yeah, no one does
I don't
believe
disagree,
it.
but there are two things that really stick out that are important here. So the power grid is a huge problem. We saw what happened in Texas last year when it got shut down, and our infrastructure cannot support these kinds of conditions.
So we should put money into that. Why don't we put money into that?
Well, we have a bipartisan infrastructure bill, but more of this money that he's talking about in the executive actions.
It's too bad that all the bipartisan infrastructure bill is going to be eaten up by inflation, which was caused by the American Rescue Plan. I mean, do you see the cycle we've got here? All right, coming up next, a good guy with a gun saved countless lives during a mass shooting, but now he is getting attacked. We'll tell you all about it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.